Bryce Elder got the win last night in the series opener against the Blue Jays, but is his stuff good enough to start in the postseason? Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on into Braves Today, a production of the Belief Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, author of the Braves Today newsletter over at bravestoday.com. Bryce Elder was the winning pitcher last night in Atlanta's win over the Toronto Blue Jays, and it was a good outing. He threw 6 2/3 innings, 3 runs on 6 hits. He did give up 1 home run, 2-run shot, because of course it was. Walked 1, struck out 6. His ERA on the season is now at a 2.63. And he has been, I would argue, from a reliability standpoint, Atlanta's second best starter this year, behind only Chris Sale. But we talked yesterday about if Spencer Strider is going to get back to that point where he can be second ace for you in the postseason. And a lot of the response that I got was mixed. There was open questions. I feel like this may not have as many questions. There may not be as many people on the fence here about Bryce Elder. So let's talk about who he's been as a pitcher this season, how he's different, and if this is good enough for a postseason start. Because I think the thing we have to discuss when it comes to Bryce Elder is the difference in the perception of Bryce Elder and the reality of Bryce Elder, right? The perception of Bryce Elder coming into this season, and really he started to turn this around the back half of last year, was that he was a sinker slider guy that lived off of ground balls, but he'd walk too many guys, he'd hang pitches, they'd get banged, and he was prone to about a blow up a month. And honestly, he came about that kind of earned. It was deserved, right? Because outside of the first half of 2023, where he was an all-star and played like an all-star, Bryce Elder, this was a very deserved reputation. Now, again, I've talked about this on the show a ton. He started to turn that around last year, right? Second half of the year, finding more consistency, being much, much better. From August 1st through the end of last season, he made 11 starts. 8 of them were quality starts. Now, he still had the blow-ups, right? 8 runs and 4 2/3 against the White Sox. 6 runs on 10 hits and 4 1/3 versus Houston. But for the most part, he was pretty good down the stretch. And then this year, he's been really good. But there's a difference in doing it in the regular season and doing it in the postseason. And it's not necessarily the caliber of competition. If you look at Bryce Elder's game log for 2026, he has 2 scoreless outings in there. One of them's Miami. Probably won't see them in the postseason. One of them's the Dodgers. You most certainly will see them in the postseason. He goes 5 2/3 against LA in early May. I didn't mean to rhyme that, but I should have leaned into that. 8 strikeouts, 1 hit. He does walk 4, but 1 hit to LA, strikes out 8. And so he's made it happen against some of the best teams in baseball, right? He took Philly 3 runs across 7 innings against Philly. Arizona's looks like they could be a playoff team. No earned runs in 7 innings, 8 strikeouts, 4 hits. But when you get to the postseason, a lot of this is going to depend on stuff. And that's really the area where Bryce Elder gets dinged. Because from a stuff plus perspective, when you look at the caliber of his pitches in a vacuum, they're not typically where you would expect a guy with the performance that he has put up to be. And I think you can see this in the strikeout numbers. One of the things that they commonly look for signs of or for signs of performance regression is if your strikeout rate's below 25%. He's at 20.9 this year, and it's a career high. But the stuff specifically stands out because in some ways it's gotten worse, not better. We know that Bryce Elder's added a little bit of velocity to his four-seam fastball, and that's genuinely helped things. In Stuff Plus, his four-seam fastball, Stuff Plus is indexed to 100. A 100 score is league average. His four-seam fastball used to sit in the 60s. It used to be at 65 in 2023. Virtually on the verge of why are you even trying to throw this pitch in baseball? He's improved it by adding velocity. He went from that four-seam fastball, I had it here, that four-seam fastball sitting 90.5. It now averages 92.6, a little bit better shape. The Stuff Plus has come all the way up to an 81. It's still well below average, but it is better. His sinker has never really been that good. It went from an 80 to an 89. The flip side of this is his slider was always the pitch. A high of 107 in his career. It was 102. This year, it's an 88. His slider is, from a pure stuff perspective, worse. And his Stuff Plus is an 86 overall. Again, 100 is league average. So his stuff is roughly 14% worse than the average right-handed starter. But yet the results are there. Part of it is his location grades out better than ever before. But Bryce Elder's a guy that is getting it done without just sheer stuff. And some of this is the limitations of the Stuff Plus models, right? He gets a 33% whiff rate on the slider, which is virtually exactly what it was in 2023, when he was great in the first half and struggled in the second half. He's throwing the sinker a lot less. I talked about this in the postcast last night. He barely uses the sinker in against lefties anymore. He's four-seam slider to lefties. He's sinker slider to righties. And he's kind of supplemented, rather than using the sinker to lefties, he's throwing the cutter instead, which I'm okay with. And yes, he's used it like 5 times to righties. The thing I was kind of asking for him to do was to figure out more things against righties. He's added in that cutter a little bit to righties. He's become a more well-rounded pitcher. But again, he's not getting it done via stuff. He's getting it done via locations, via sequencing, and minimizing hard contact. And I do think you can throw him in a postseason game. I don't think you can have a plan of him going 7 innings in a postseason game. But I do think Bryce Elder can pitch for you in the postseason. Because there are things that he does really well that I don't know if he gets proper credit for. Hard hit rate. Chris Sale is second in baseball at hard hit rate at 29.6%. Bryce Elder is 34th at 39%. And there are very good pitchers that are behind Bryce Elder when it comes to hard hit rate. Yoshinobu Yamamoto of the Dodgers, whose ERA is actually higher than Bryce Elder's, 39.3%. Elder's as good as Yamamoto, slightly better technically at not allowing hard contact. Brian Wu of the Seattle Mariners, who strikes out a ton of dudes and has great fastballs. Jacob deGrom is behind Bryce Elder. Aaron Nola is behind Bryce Elder. The breakout arm in New York, Cam Schlittler, is behind Bryce Elder. And he's absolutely been one of the better starters in baseball in that regard. When you look at barrel rate, Paul Skeens has a barrel rate allowed of 4.3%. He wishes he could have Bryce Elder's barrel rate of 3.5%. Bryce Elder is the fourth best starter in baseball at barrel rate. 3.5%. He's legitimately been really good. I don't know how this stuff translates, right? I don't know how it translates to the postseason, to the lineups that you'll face there. And I don't want to fall back on he made postseason starts in 2023 and it didn't go well because Bryce Elder is a different person, different pitcher than he was in 2023. It's a different pitch mix. It's different caliber stuff. But we all saw it. He gave up 2 home runs and 2/3 to Philly in a loss. He has a postseason ERA of 20.25. And small sample size shenanigans here. Field and independent pitching for that is only 11.13. But it didn't go well. That being said, Atlanta may need to use him in the postseason. So let's do this. Let's look at postseason caliber arms and where they rank in a stuff plus perspective. Let's look at what does he need to show you between now and the end of the season to feel more comfortable with him making a postseason start. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. But first, this episode is brought to you by IQ Bar, our exclusive snack, hydration, and coffee sponsor. IQ Bar protein bars, IQ Mix hydration mixes, and IQ Joe mushroom coffees are the delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel you need to win your day. The Ultimate Sampler Pack's a great way to try all IQ Bar products and flavors. You get 9 IQ bars, 8 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. And all IQ Bar products are clean label certified and entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial ingredients. With over 20,000 5-star reviews and counting, more people than ever are fueling their busy lifestyles with IQ Bar's brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom-infused coffees, and their Ultimate Sampler Pack includes all 3. Right now, IQ Bar is offering Braves Today listeners 20% off of all IQ Bar products, including the Ultimate Sampler Pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text MLB to 64000. That's MLB to 64000. That's MLB to 64000. Messages and data rates may apply. See terms for details. Okay, when you're looking at Bryce Elder, I know I touched on Stuff Plus and then I went away from it. Now we're going to come back to it. Probably not the best way to build a show. But if you assume that Bryce Elder is going to be a postseason starter for you this year, here's the thing. 69 qualified starters in Major League Baseball as of Wednesday morning. And for those of you who don't know about how the qualification works, you have to have pitched 1 inning per team game. So, since the Braves have played 61 games as of this morning, you have to have pitched 61 innings to qualify on leaderboards. And that's obviously different per team. If your team's played 65, you have to have pitched 65, whatever. Again, there is exactly 69 pitchers who are qualified as of right now. Bryce Elder is one of the tops from that list as far as innings goes. He's 3rd in innings. The only guys ahead of him, he has 78.2. Only guys ahead of him, Christopher Sanchez of the Phillies has 79.1. Sandy Alcantara has 82.1. So nobody eats innings like the NL East. But when you look at this from a Stuff Plus perspective, Bryce Elder is 67th out of 69 teams, or 69 players who are qualified at an 86. The only guys below him, Michael McGreevy of the Cardinals and Tomoyuki Sugano of the Rockies. Everybody else in baseball who was qualified is ahead of him. And that doesn't mean a lot of these guys are doing great. Seth Lugo is right above him at 87. Eduardo Rodriguez, Shota Imanaga and Jameson Taillon of the Cubs are both, like, they're 62 and 63. Bailey Ober of the Twins, 93. Michael Soroka, old friend who has been a very popular trade ask, is at a 93. He's 59th. Michael King, who people wanted the Braves to sign at free agency, he is 56th at a 95. Freddie Peralta, who the Braves had discussions about trying to trade for, is 53rd at a 95. And you can be dominant without great stuff. Plus, Parker Messick came pretty close to a no-hitter this year, and he has a 96. But it is typically easier to get it through a postseason start when you have good stuff. And also, to be clear, just while I'm in this list real quick, having great stuff doesn't mean that you are automatically a very good pitcher. Yuri Perez has the second best stuff plus among qualified starters in all of baseball this year with a 118. He also has an ERA of 4.60. And that's mostly deserved. His expected ERA is 4.90, and his fielded independent pitching is 4.65. So just having good stuff inherently does not make you a good pitcher, and not having good stuff does not inherently make you a bad pitcher. But it does make it tougher in the postseason because of the sample size. We've talked about how the postseason is so fluky. So many things, little things happen that over time, over the course of a whole season, this is going to even out. It's not going to do that in the postseason. I remember seeing a study. If they wanted a postseason series to accurately reflect the skill level of the teams and to play enough games to eliminate the sample size flukiness that is inherent in the postseason, the series would have to be like 40 plus games long. And clearly we're not doing that, right? Your whole season would be the playoffs, really. Anything can happen in a 3 or a 5 or a 7 game series. And I need to do more research on this. I need to pull more numbers and verify this. But the assumption that I have, and I think a lot of you probably do too, not all of you, but a lot of you, is that having better stuff inherently maybe gives you a better margin for error in the postseason, right? It may be harder to hit an individual pitch if you have a fastball with a stuff plus of 117 like Cam Schlittler, or 113 if you're Brian Wu, or 131 if you're Jacob Mizorowski and you're pumping 102 all the time, than it would if you have a fastball with a stuff plus of 81 and you're throwing 92.6 like Bryce Elder is. I'm not saying just go out and find a guy with great stuff plus and throw him into the rotation, specifically for the postseason, but I am saying this is a consideration. And what I am curious about, is there a level for Bryce Elder of performance, of stuff, of measurement, whatever you want to call it, where he is good enough where they believe he can make it through a postseason start, and that they do think he is one of their 3 best options for a postseason start? I don't know what that is. Like, when you look at some of the other measurements, location plus, he has a 105. He's above average on locations, 28th in baseball. When you look at pitching plus, which kind of combines stuff in location, Bryce Elder is not grading out well. He is 61st out of those 69 pitchers with a 93 overall. And again, he's still getting it done. Now, he has fallen. Brave Today sponsor FanDuel has dropped him in the Cy Young odds all the way to plus 15,000. He's now tied with Spencer Strider. He was ahead of Strider based on ERA and results. He's now dropped to plus 15,000. But he could do it. I think at the end of the day, the conversation behind Bryce Elder should have changed. The conversation should have changed from the average fan, which, Ball, you're not the average fan, but the average fan thinking that he didn't belong in the rotation, to at least being able to admit he can make it in the rotation. I don't know if he should be one of your planned postseason starters. I think if you get there and you need him, you can build a plan to get him through an order once at least, but you can be prepared to go to the pen whenever you need to. Make an aggressive pull because of all the extra off days, the extra options you'll have in the pen and all of that. I don't think Bryce Elder should be one of your 3 postseason starters planned as of right now. And it comes back to yesterday's conversation. Can Strider get there as number 2 behind Sale? Can Hurston Waldrop or Spencer Schwellenbach get there as number 3, or do you need to go make a trade? I feel like you're going to need to make a trade. I still maintain that position. I feel like you need to go get a guy. But we've got time to get there. We've got time to figure out what is Hurston Waldrop. What does he look like? What does Spencer Strider look like? But as much as I've supported Bryce Elder, and I have been very vocal that I think he should be part of the rotation, I think he's not a terrible pitcher like a lot of people thought, I don't know if it's a good idea to count on him making postseason starts. Let me know what you think. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment down below. If you're on audio, I'm on social media at Crosby Baseball. Would love to hear from you. Would love to hear your thoughts on this. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.